In the vast archives of the Great Galactic Library on Centaurus Prime, there exists a forbidden chronicle, a tale so terrifying that even the most stoic of the Council elders mandated it be sealed away under 13 quantum locks. I, Chronicler Zixvoon of the 7th Historical Order, have been granted rare access to these records, for they contain the truth about how the universe as we knew it changed. Let it be known that what follows is not a myth, but a warning. It began, as most catastrophes do, with a routine transmission, Outpost Epsilon 9 to Galactic Security Council, day cycle 5527 standard rotation, all systems normal, nothing to the message cut off. Just like that. No distress beacon, no emergency protocols, nothing but silence. Where 700 of the Confederation's finest xenobiologists and their families had once lived. 3 solar cycles later, when the rapid response vessels of the Unified Species Fleet arrived at the previously unremarkable research station orbiting the gas giant Torvalius 4, they found only debris and the inexplicable. The outpost had not merely been destroyed, it had been dismantled with surgical precision. No radiation signatures, no weapon traces, no bodies. It defies all known tactical doctrines, Admiral Krilzan of the Artaxian Defense Force reported to the hastily assembled Emergency Council meeting. The Admiral's gill slits pulsed rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among his aquatic species. Whatever did this possess technology far beyond our collective understanding. The Council chambers erupted in pandemonium. The 7 dominant species of the Galactic Confederation had maintained peace for 12 millennia through technological superiority and a complex system of mutual deterrence. The idea that something, or someone, could so effortlessly bypass their defenses threatened the very foundation of their civilization. "We cannot rule out the involvement of the humans," suggested Ambassador Thule, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that conveyed deep suspicion. The chamber fell silent. Even mentioning the newcomers was considered almost taboo in diplomatic settings. High Counselor Vrex, eldest of the Saurians and de facto leader of the Council, raised all 4 of his upper appendages to call for order. The humans? That primitive species we discovered barely 3 rotations ago? Preposterous. They've only just achieved rudimentary faster-than-light travel. "With respect, High Counselor," countered General Dravatar of the Valachian military, "there is much we still don't understand about them. Their planet's historical records show a disturbing affinity for warfare. They spent more time fighting among themselves than developing their technology. It's unprecedented." The holographic displays in the center of the chamber shifted to show images of the small blue-green world at the edge of an unremarkable spiral arm. Earth, 3rd planet from an average yellow star, home to the strangest bipedal organisms the Confederation had ever encountered. "The humans lack the technological capability for this type of attack," insisted Science Director Elorai Fenn, her tentacles twitching with academic certainty. "Their vessels are crude, their weapon systems primitive, their understanding of quantum mechanics is quaint at best. And yet," Ambassador Thule's voice resonated like crystal being struck, "they achieved in 300 of their years what took most of our species millennia. They are unpredictable." The room's tension could have been sliced with a plasma cutter. For a civilization built on careful planning and evolutionary stability, unpredictability was more terrifying than any weapon. "The humans are not responsible," declared High Counselor Vrex finally. "But this incident reveals our vulnerability. As a precaution, I propose we accelerate the human observation initiative. If they are indeed as dangerous as some fear, we must know before they fully integrate into galactic society." What the Council couldn't know, was that they were already too late. At that very moment, on the outer edge of the debris field that had once been Outpost Epsilon 9, a small, unmarked vessel of human design was collecting samples. Its occupant, a lone figure in a stealth suit, worked methodically in the vacuum, seemingly unbothered by the destruction surrounding them. "Control, this is Agent Takumi," the figure sub-vocalized through their neural implant. "Confirmation complete. It's exactly what we feared. The progenitor artifacts were transported off-station before the attack. Someone else knows. The response came instantly, projected directly into the agent's auditory cortex. Understood. Return immediately. The administrator wants full briefing. Operation Pandora's Box is now in effect. The small ship disappeared into FTL, leaving no trace of its presence. A skill humans had perfected long before they encountered the stars, and thus began what would later be known throughout the galaxy as the Awakening. The moment when the civilized species of the universe realized they were no longer the apex predators. That distinction now belonged to the curious, unpredictable, and terrifyingly adapted newcomers from Earth. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. From the personal logs of Dr. Camilla Reed, xenoanthropologist and first human liaison to the Galactic Confederation, recovered from the Martian archives, dated 3 standard years before the Epsilon 9 incident. Looking back, our first meeting with the aliens was a comedy of errors that nearly ended in tragedy. Emphasis on nearly, because if there's one thing humans excel at, it's turning certain doom into improbable victory while cracking inappropriate jokes along the way. The Confederation's first contact vessel, the Harmonious Exchange, appeared in Earth's orbit with all the subtlety of a rhinoceros in a china shop. Their massive ship, resembling what would happen if a jellyfish mated with a disco ball, triggered every defense system we had. 17 nations launched missiles before anyone bothered to check if the visitors were hostile. Captain Nakamura of the International Space Defense Force was eating a sandwich when the alerts flooded his command center. "Sir," his communications officer shouted, "unknown vessel, massive energy signatures, orders?" Ryota, mouth still full of pastrami on rye, squinted at the view screen. "Have they fired on us?" "No, sir." "Have they communicated?" "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, sir, in 157 different languages, none of them human." Ryota swallowed. "Haha, das new." He took another bite and shrugged. "Maybe hold off on the apocalypse for 5 minutes, just to see what they want?" That 5-minute delay saved humanity from what would have been a spectacularly embarrassing first impression. When I led the delegation aboard their vessel 12 hours later, the Confederation representatives were still processing the fact that we'd almost attacked them out of reflex. 6 different alien species stood before us in their ceremonial attire, looking like the setup to a bizarre joke. So a crystal person, a squid, a lizard man, a floating cloud, something resembling a sentient fern, and what I can only describe as a technicolor giraffe walk into a bar. High Emissary Vorla Zen of the Saurians addressed us first. His forearms moved in precise gestures that their translators assured us conveyed peaceful welcome, but to humans looked disturbingly like someone preparing to perform an invasive medical procedure. "We greet you, humans of Earth," the translator device chirped in an unsettlingly cheerful voice. "We have observed your civilization's development with great interest. Your species has now reached the threshold for inclusion in the galactic community." Ambassador Jerome Powell, career diplomat and renowned poker player, smiled. "That's mighty kind of you. We're just thrilled to bits to learn we're not alone out here. Though I gotta say your timing is impeccable. You caught us right in the middle of our Thursday nuclear war simulations. Almost got a proper welcome." The translator whirred frantically before producing a series of bewildered clicks from the Confederation representatives. "You simulate planetary extinction events as routine exercises?" asked Science Director Elori Fenn, her tentacles curling in what I would later learn indicated extreme confusion. "Oh sure," Powell continued, completely missing the aliens' horror. "Gotta stay sharp. We've been preparing for alien invasion since we invented cinema. Got contingency plans for everything. Hostile takeovers, body snatchers, face huggers, you name it." Before I could intervene, Captain Nakamura, who had absolutely no business being part of a diplomatic mission, but had insisted on keeping an eye on the aliens, chimed in with characteristic bluntness. "Just to clarify," he said, while casually inspecting a piece of alien fruit from the welcome banquet, "if you folks had come here with conquest in mind, we'd have thrown everything we had at you. Probably wouldn't have won, but," he took a bite and grimaced at the taste, "we'd have made sure nobody won." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The first major test of human-alien relations came 3 days into negotiations, when the environmental controls in our delegation's quarters failed. Temperatures plummeted to -40 degrees as life support systems crashed. The Confederation representatives were horrified. Such conditions were fatal to all their species. They rushed to the human quarters, expecting to find corpses. Instead, they found our team huddled in makeshift insulation torn from wall panels, playing cards and sharing flasks of whiskey. "Bit nippy in here," Powell greeted them with chattering teeth. "Reminds me of winter camping in Minnesota." Dr. Ming Zhou, our chief scientist, had already half disassembled the environmental control panel and was rewiring it with tools improvised from cutlery. "Almost got it," she muttered. "Captain, hand me that spork, would you?" The aliens watched in stunned silence as humans not only survived conditions that should have killed them, but treated the life-threatening emergency as an inconvenience. "Your species can endure this?" asked Ambassador Thule, her crystalline form vibrating with what might have been awe. "Endure?" Nakamura laughed, his breath visible in the freezing air. "Lady, humans have lived in the Antarctic for fun. This is just Tuesday for Canadians." It was our medical examination that truly disturbed them, though. When their physicians discovered our body's cellular repair mechanisms, pain tolerance, and particularly our adaptive immune system, the mood shifted from diplomatic caution to something closer to fear. "Your bodies," Science Director Ellery Fence stammered after reviewing the data, "they're constantly at war. Your immune systems attack foreign bodies. You repair damage by creating scar tissue. You adapt to poisons by becoming resistant to them." "Well, yeah," Zhao replied. "That's just basic human biology. Wait until you hear about how we deliberately expose ourselves to pathogens to build immunity. We call it vaccination. It's really quite clever." The look of horror on the alien faces needed no translation. By the end of that first week, the Confederation had accelerated their integration timeline for humanity by 300%. The official reason was unprecedented species compatibility with galactic systems. The unofficial reason, as I overheard from two Artaxian guards who didn't realize I understood their language, better to have the humans inside our coalition than outside it. At least this way we can monitor them. How right they were to worry, and how little they truly understood what they were dealing with. Transcript of Emergency Galactic Security Council session, 1 standard week after the Epsilon 9 incident. The council chambers hadn't seen such chaos since the nebular plague of the 43rd millennium. Representatives from 17 systems shouted over one another, while holographic displays showed the same terrifying footage on loop. 3 more outposts, Gamma 7, Helix Station, and New Arcturus, had gone dark in the same manner as Epsilon 9. No warnings, no distress calls, just silence and perfectly dismantled infrastructure. High Counselor Vrex pounded his ceremonial staff, its crystalline head emitting sonic pulses that finally brought the chamber to order. "We face an existential threat," he announced. His normally blue scales faded to a sickly gray. "Whatever force destroyed these outposts has now penetrated into the heart of Confederation space. The pattern suggests the next target will be either the quantum archives on Rigel Prime or the Central Military Command on Dorsica V." General Draftar's hologram flickered as he transmitted from the front lines. "Our fleets are stretched thin, protecting civilian evacuation corridors. We lack the resources to adequately defend both installations." "Then we must choose," said Ambassador Thule grimly. "The archives contain 10,000 years of our collective knowledge. Military Command coordinates our entire defense network." "An impossible choice," murmured Science Director Ellery Fent. The council chamber doors hissed open, and all eyes turned as a delegation of humans entered, led by Captain Nakamura and Dr. Reed. Though officially members of the Confederation for nearly 3 years, humans were still rarely seen at high-level proceedings. "Pardon the interruption," Nakamura said with a slight bow that somehow managed to seem both respectful and dismissive simultaneously. "We couldn't help overhearing your predicament. Sound carries in these marble halls. Excellent acoustics, terrible for security." Ambassador Thule's crystalline form shifted to a frequency indicating annoyance. "This is a closed session, humans. And yet," Dr. Reed stepped forward, "this concerns all species in the Confederation, does it not? Even the newcomers?" Before any could object further, the main doors opened again. A tall, imposing figure entered alone, moving with eerie grace. Grand Admiral Zex Ravnik of the Voth Imperium, a species that had maintained an uneasy neutrality with the Confederation for millennia. His reptilian features were enhanced with cybernetic implants, and the ceremonial armor he wore gleamed with an oily darkness that seemed to swallow light. How fortunate! His voice hissed through both natural and synthetic vocal organs. The council debates while doom approaches, and now the pets have come to watch. Captain Nakamura's expression remained neutral, but Dr. Reed noticed his hand drift subtly toward where a weapon would be if diplomatic protocols hadn't forbidden them. Grand Admiral, High Counselor Vrex acknowledged with careful formality. The Voth Imperium honors us with your presence, though we did not request assistance. Zexravnik's laugh was like metal scraping stone. Assistance? No. I come merely to observe the end of your experiment in multi-species governance. The Voth have long predicted the Confederation would collapse under its own contradictions. We're not dead yet, Nakamura said cheerfully. Though I appreciate your enthusiasm for our funeral, the Grand Admiral's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on the human. Ah, the newest specimens. I've studied your kind extensively. Aggressive, short-lived creatures with delusions of grandeur. Your inclusion in the Confederation was its final mistake. Dr. Reed stepped between them. Perhaps we could focus on the crisis at hand. My colleague and I came with a proposal. A proposal? Science Director Ellery Fenn's tentacles uncurled with interest. We can't defend both installations with conventional forces, Reed explained. So don't use conventional forces. A small team could infiltrate the quantum archives, transfer the critical data to secure backups, and rig the entire facility with quantum destabilizers. A trap. Nakamura continued, his eyes never leaving the Voth Admiral. When our invisible enemy arrives to dismantle the archives, they'll find an explosive surprise instead. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Grand Admiral Zexravnik's scales rippled in what might have been amusement. And who would volunteer for this suicide mission? He asked. The archives are now in the projected path of whatever force is destroying outposts. To enter that region is certain death. Nakamura shrugged. We would. Earth's special forces have been training for high-risk operations since before we joined the Confederation. Preposterous, snapped Ambassador Thule. No offense intended, humans, but this is not some primitive skirmish on your homeworld. This enemy possesses technology beyond even our understanding. With respect, Ambassador, Reed countered. Sometimes understanding too much becomes a limitation. You're all so technologically advanced that you've forgotten how to be creatively destructive. A charming sentiment, Zexravnik said, his cybernetic eye pulsing. But I believe I have a more effective solution. He activated a holographic display showing a massive warship unlike any in the Confederation fleet. The Voth Imperium offers the service of our dreadnought, the Eternal Dominion. In exchange for certain concessions from the Council, the room temperature seemed to drop as the implications became clear. The Voth were using this crisis to leverage political advantage. High Council of Relic scales darkened further. What concessions? Nothing too burdensome. Zexravnik's mouth curved in what alien cultural scholars would later describe as the closest approximation of a crocodilian smile. Merely the rights to develop 3 uninhabited systems and oversight of all research related to the progenitor artifacts. The humans exchanged a look that didn't go unnoticed by the Grand Admiral. Unless, he added with deadly precision, you prefer to entrust your civilization's survival to these untested primates and their creative destruction, and there it was. The challenge laid bare. Trust the calculating Voth with their hidden agenda, or the unpredictable humans with their impossible plan. What no one in that chamber yet realized was that both options were playing directly into the hands of whoever, or whatever, was methodically dismantling the foundations of galactic society, piece by perfect piece. From the operational logs of the SSV Odysseus, human stealth vessel, approaching the quantum archives on Rigel Prime. Status report, Captain Nakamura demanded, striding onto the bridge of the Odysseus. The small human vessel had been retrofitted with a hodgepodge of technologies, some borrowed, some stolen, and some improvised in ways that would give Confederation engineers nightmares. Stealth systems functioning at 94%, Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Axel Rodriguez, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Though I should mention that's only because I've rerouted power from the coffee makers. Sacrifices must be made in war, Nakamura replied solemnly, though the twitch at the corner of his mouth betrayed his amusement. The galaxy will remember your heroism, Rodriguez. Dr. Reed rolled her eyes as she reviewed data on her tablet. If we survive, perhaps we can erect a monument. Here lies the dignity of the human race, sacrificed for a bad joke. The mission had come together with alarming speed. While the Council deliberated and Grand Admiral Zexravnik made increasingly demanding offers of assistance, the humans had simply acted. The team assembled on the Odysseus represented Earth's finest. Dr. Zoe, the scientist who'd become infamous for her improvisational engineering, Major Devi Lakshmi, whose background in Earth's most elite special forces made her the perfect security lead, Professor Olufemi Adeyemi, the foremost human expert on quantum data systems, and, most surprisingly, a civilian named Jackson Cooper, a professional thief whose criminal record had been conveniently misplaced when his unique skill set became relevant to galactic security. Approaching Rigel Prime, announced the pilot, Lieutenant Kwan. Sensor readings are weird. Define weird, Lieutenant, Nakamura demanded. The planetary defense grid is active, but it's not scanning properly. Like someone's running it on autopilot. Or like someone's already compromised it, suggested Cooper, who had been quietly observing from the back of the bridge. The former thief twirled a stylus between his fingers with the unconscious dexterity of someone who'd spent their life working with their hands. Defense systems are only as good as the people monitoring them. Confederation systems are fully automated, Dr. Reed reminded him. Cooper's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Exactly my point, Doc. People hack systems. Systems just follow protocols. Major Lakshmi, who had been silently studying tactical displays, finally spoke. The approach to the Archives facility has no physical anomalies, no debris, no signs of combat. But the automated security checkpoints are all green-lit. Green-lit, as in, Nakamura prompted, as in were apparently expected, sir. A chill settled over the bridge. It's a trap, Rodriguez stated flatly. Obviously it's a trap, Nakamura replied cheerfully. The question is, whose trap? Our mysterious outpost dismantlers, the Voth, or the Confederation itself? He turned to Dr. Zhou. Is our little package ready? Dr. Zhou grinned. Ready and extremely legal by about 17 different Confederation technological regulations. Perfect. Lieutenant Kwan, take us in full stealth mode. Sir, if the defenses are compromised, stealth may be irrelevant, probably. But let's not be rude and announce our arrival anyway. As the Odysseus glided toward the massive crystalline structure housing the quantum archives, the team prepared for insertion. Their plan defied conventional Confederation military doctrine in every conceivable way. Where the aliens would have deployed overwhelming force, the humans opted for subtlety. Where Confederation protocol demanded caution, the humans embraced calculated risk. The archives themselves were a marvel of engineering, a structure larger than Earth's moon, containing data crystals that stored the accumulated knowledge of 17 sentient species. Normally, the facility would house thousands of researchers and security personnel. The sensor readings showed it was virtually empty. I'm detecting minimal life signs, reported Rodriguez. Maybe 20 individuals, concentrated in the central core. Survivors or hostiles? Asked Major Lakshmi. Unknown. But they're definitely not moving like security patrols. Nakamura made his decision. We proceed as planned. Professor Adeyemi, you'll have 15 minutes to extract the critical data. Dr. Zoe, your demolition package needs to be planted in the quantum stabilizer core. Coop, I know, the thief replied with exaggerated boredom. Bypass the unbypassable security systems and don't get caught. Child's play compared to the Louvre job, allegedly. Reed raised an eyebrow but wisely chose not to pursue that particular thread. The insertion went suspiciously smoothly. Using maintenance conduits never designed for humanoid access, the team infiltrated the archive's outer ring. Cooper's expertise with security systems proved invaluable, though his methods often involved what he called percussive maintenance, hitting things until they worked, as much as sophisticated hacking. Confederation engineers, he muttered while bypassing yet another security door. They overthink everything. So concerned with quantum encryption they forget about the physical lock components. Always a weak link somewhere. Awkward Zone, meanwhile, had modified their comms to operate on frequencies the Confederation considered obsolete and therefore didn't monitor. Sometimes the old ways are best, she explained when Major Lakshmi questioned the primitive technology. My grandmother's recipe for dumplings hasn't changed in 6 generations and it's still perfect. Are you comparing military communications to cooking? Lakshmi asked, incredulous. Both involve proper timing, appropriate heat, and knowing when to improvise, Zhou replied with a wink. As they penetrated deeper into the facility, however, the initially empty corridors gave way to signs of struggle. Scorch marks on walls, blood of various colors and compositions, and most disturbing of all, precision cuts in the very structure of the archive itself, as though sections had been surgically removed. Just like the outposts, Dr. Reed whispered, running her scanner over a perfectly severed support beam. It's not destruction, it's harvesting. When they finally reached the central core, the true scope of the situation became clear. The 20 life signs were indeed survivors, Confederation archivists and security personnel who had barricaded themselves in the main data vault. But they weren't alone. Standing among them, apparently giving orders, was a face that stopped the human team cold. Agent Takumi, the same human operative who had been investigating the Epsilon 9 debris field, was methodically directing the removal of specific data crystals. Well, Nakamura said after a moment of stunned silence, this complicates things. Captain, Takumi acknowledged without surprise. You're 47 minutes ahead of my projected timeline. Humanity's efficiency continues to impress. Are you going to explain why a human agent is apparently leading the very operation we're here to stop? Major Lakshmi demanded, her weapon trained steadily on Takumi. I'm not leading it, Takumi replied calmly. I'm trying to mitigate the damage. The progenitor artifacts have been activated. The harvesting has begun. And I'm afraid our dear Confederation allies have been keeping secrets that are about to get us all killed. As if on cue, the archive's emergency systems blared to life. But it wasn't an intruder alert targeting the human team. The automated voice that echoed through the facility spoke in the distinctive dual-toned pattern of a Voth communication. Attention, the Eternal Dominion has entered orbit. Prepare for authorized extraction. Takumi's expression hardened. And now the real enemy arrives. Captain, you have a decision to make. Continue with your mission and destroy this facility, or help me save the one thing that might prevent galactic extinction. And what might that be? Nakamura asked. The truth about what humans really are, and why every species in the galaxy should fear us. The Eternal Dominion arrived like a dark prophecy fulfilled. Its hull, an obsidian nightmare of angles that seemed to defy normal space, eclipsed Rigel Prime's smaller moon as it established orbit. Scans detect Voth boarding parties inbound, Lieutenant Quen reported through the comms. 7 minutes until they breach the outer ring. The Odysseus is maintaining stealth, but I don't know how long we can avoid detection. Captain Nakamura turned to Agent Takumi. 1 minute, explain. The progenitor artifacts aren't relics, Takumi said rapidly. They're components of a biomechanical intelligence that predates all known galactic civilizations. The Confederation found the first piece 50 years ago and has been secretly recovering others ever since. And these artifacts are what's been dismantling the outposts? Doc Reeve asked. No. Whatever is doing that is hunting the artifacts. The Confederation has been moving them between facilities, trying to stay one step ahead, while the Voth have been tracking them, Nakamura concluded. Hence their convenient arrival. A tremendous blast rocked the archives, sending crystalline shards cascading from the ceiling. Emergency barriers slammed down, separating Cooper and Major Lakshmi from the rest of the team. That wasn't the Voth, Cooper's voice crackled through the damaged comms. Something just breached the north quadrant. It doesn't match any known ship configuration. The Harvester, Takumi said grimly. Captain, I've been authorized to bring you into Operation Pandora's Box. Earth Command has known about the progenitor technology since before first contact. Before? Dr. Zhao's eyes widened. That's impossible. Unless we weren't the first humans they encountered, Dr. Reed breathed, the impossible truth dawning on her. The Confederation found Earth because they were tracking something. Takumi nodded. Genetic markers. The progenitors didn't just vanish, they seeded themselves into compatible species across the galaxy. Humans carry more of their genetic material than any other known species. We're part alien, Nakamura said flatly. Fantastic. Always wondered why I liked Tentico. Captain, Major Lakshmi's urgent voice interrupted through static. We're cut off from your position. Hostiles approaching from both sides there. I've never seen anything like them. Describe, Nakamura ordered. Humanoid, but wrong. Like someone described a human to a blind sculptor who'd never touched one. They're taking the facility apart with their hands, just peeling the metal away like it's paper. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered, and emergency power engaged, bathing everything in eerie blue. The progenitor artifact is in Vault Sigma 3, Takumi said, pulling up a schematic. If the harvesters get it, they complete their collection. If the Voth get it, they'll try to weaponize it. Either way, the galaxy falls. Fantastic choices, Nakamura muttered. Dr. Zhao, status on our demolition package. Ready to deploy, but... She hesitated. If we destroy the archives with the artifact inside, we might trigger whatever apocalypse we're trying to prevent. Professor Adiemi finished. The quantum resonance could activate it. A third explosion sent them all to the floor. Through the new breach in the wall, they saw their first harvester, a figure that moved with jerking, insectile precision. Its limbs bent at impossible angles, and its face was a blank mask with too many eyes, arranged in no pattern nature would design. We need to retreat, Dr. Reed urged. Get back to the Odysseus and warn the Confederation. Negative, Takumi countered. The artifact must be secured. The mission was to destroy the archives, Nakamura reminded them, his voice steady despite the chaos. Prevent the enemy from taking anything of value. Captain, Cooper's voice came through clearly despite the interference. I might have a third option. These harvesters, they're dismantling specific systems in specific ways. They have a pattern. And, Nakamura prompted, and I'm a thief. Patterns are my business. Give me 5 minutes with the archive's primary control interface. I think I can. The transmission degraded into static. Cooper? Cooper? Nakamura slammed his fist against the comm unit. The darkness beyond their small circle of emergency lighting seemed to deepen. More harvesters moved in the shadows, their limbs clicking against metal and crystal. Sir, said Dr. Zhou quietly, I can reconfigure our demolition package into smaller charges. Target specific systems instead of the whole facility. Nakamura looked at her. Creating a path to the vault, she nodded, while creating the maximum confusion for both the harvesters and the Voth. It's suicide, Takumi stated. The vault is now behind harvester lines and in the direct path of the Voth boarding parties. Nakamura's smile was grim determination incarnate. Agent Takumi, let me tell you the real reason humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. It's not our genetic connection to ancient aliens. It's not our adaptive immune systems or our pain tolerance. Another explosion. Closer. It's that when someone says suicide mission, we hear challenging opportunity. He checked his weapon and nodded to Dr. Zhou. Reconfigure the charges. Reed, get me a direct line to the Odysseus. We're going to need a very hot extraction. Takumi studied the human captain with new understanding. You're really going to attempt this? Attempt? Nakamura laughed, the sound incongruously bright against their dire situation. Agent, we're going to succeed spectacularly, or fail so catastrophically they'll rename this entire star system after us. Either way, the galaxy's going to remember we were here. As if to punctuate his words, the wall behind them dissolved under the touch of harvester limbs, and the first of the Voth boarding parties breached the opposite corridor, their weapons already charging. The breaking point had arrived. From the personal journal of High Counselor Vrelx. Encrypted entry, 3 days after the Rigel Prime incident. How does one describe watching gods wage war? The security footage recovered from the quantum archives defies explanation. I have witnessed it 17 times now, and still I struggle to comprehend what I saw. What the humans did. The harvesters, these echoes of the progenitors, as Agent Takumi called them, had breached 6 levels of the most secure facility in Confederation space within minutes. The Voth boarding parties, armed with technology even our science directorate classified as borderline forbidden, cut through reinforced bulkheads like tissue. By all tactical projections, the archives and the secrets within should have been lost. Then the humans happened. Captain Nakamura's strategy seemed like madness at first. Rather than defend a position or retreat to safety, he split his already outnumbered team further. Dr. Zhou and Professor Adeyemi reconfigured their demolition charges into what the professor cheerfully termed chaos bombs, devices that didn't just explode, but temporarily rewrote the local laws of physics. The first detonation caught a squad of Voth commanders in a field that inverted gravity. The second created a temporal bubble that slowed the harvesters to a crawl. Not destroyed, simply inconvenienced. Meanwhile, the thief, Cooper, had somehow bypassed the archive security lockouts and gained control of internal systems. He didn't use this access, as any Confederation tactical officer would have, to seal bulkheads or deploy countermeasures. Instead, he treated the entire facility like a demented playground, rerouting power to random systems, creating holographic duplicates of the human team members, and at one point flooding an entire section with the contents of the archive's waste reclamation system. If chaos is inevitable, Cooper's voice can be heard saying on the recovered audio, control it, become it. The most remarkable moment came when Major Lakshmi found herself cornered by 3 harvesters. Rather than fight the superior entities directly, she deliberately damaged her own position, causing a structural collapse that appeared to kill her, only for Dr. Reed to extract her from a maintenance shaft where Lakshmi had calculated she would fall. Basic physics, the Major explained to her astonished rescuer. Just had to make sure I broke enough bones to fit through the gap. The casual way she referenced her own injuries. Injuries that would have incapacitated any Confederation species, still chills my scales. When Grand Admiral Zex Ravnik himself led the Voth elite guard into the vault chamber, he found Captain Nakamura waiting alone, sitting cross-legged beside the progenitor artifact, a crystalline dodecahedron that pulsed with internal light. "You're too late," Nakamura informed him, his tone suggesting he was discussing the weather rather than the fate of galaxies. And also extremely predictable. The Voth Admiral's fury was magnificent to behold. "You think you've won, human? My ship holds this planet in its targeting array. Surrender the artifact, or I reduce this entire facility to atoms." "That's option 1, Nakamura agreed. "Option 2 is you notice that my demolition expert has rigged the artifact itself with explosives on a deadman switch tied to my heartbeat. If I die, it detonates. If it detonates, the quantum resonance triggers every other progenitor artifact in the galaxy, including," he smiled, "the 3 your scientists are currently studying aboard the Eternal Dominion." The look on Zex Ravnik's face as he realized he'd been outmaneuvered was priceless, I believe the human expression goes. What no one anticipated was the harvester's response. As if sensing the impending destruction of their target, they converged on the vault, dozens of them, moving through walls and floors like ghosts. Agent Takumi activated the progenitor artifact. The security feed goes white at this point. When it resumes 13 seconds later, the harvesters are gone. So are the Voth forces. The artifact's crystalline structure has transformed, unfurling like a blooming flower to reveal complex circuitry that pulses with familiar patterns. "Genetic recognition protocol accepted," a synthetic voice announces. "Human DNA sequence confirmed. Contingency firewall activated." The last image shows Captain Nakamura touching the transformed artifact, his body briefly illuminated from within by the same light that pulses through the ancient technology. His final words before transmission ended, "Well, that wasn't in the briefing." The official report to the Confederation states that a previously unknown defense system within the archives activated during the Voth incursion, repelling both the invaders and the mysterious harvesters. The humans, having completed their mission to secure the facility, returned to Earth for debriefing. The truth is far more troubling. The progenitor technology did not just recognize human DNA, it responded to it, as if to a long-awaited command. The artifacts that the harvesters sought, that the Voth coveted, that our own Confederation has studied for millennia without understanding. They were never weapons or tools, they were keys. And the humans are the locksmiths. In the 3 days since what is now being called the Rigel Prime incident, 17 dormant progenitor sites across the galaxy have activated. Ancient machinery buried within planets and moons has awakened. Orbital platforms that we mistook for natural satellites have begun broadcasting signals on frequencies that only humans can apparently perceive. The humans are being summoned, to what end none can say. Ambassador Thule proposed immediately quarantining Earth and all human settlements. General Drattar suggested more direct measures. I overruled them both. It is too late for such precautions. We invited the inheritors of the progenitors into our civilization, gave them access to our technology, our star charts, our most guarded secrets. We did this believing we were the shepherds, guiding a young species. We were wrong. We were never the shepherds. We were the sheep, and the wolves have remembered what they are. End of journal entry. Encryption protocol. Highest Council clearance only. Addendum to the Chronicles of the Seventh Historical Order by Zix Voon. And so it came to pass that humanity's true nature was revealed, not as conquerors, but as caretakers. The progenitor network, once fully activated, did not bring destruction as feared, but protection, a shield against greater predators lurking between galaxies. Predators that had sent the harvesters as mere scouts for their coming hunger. The humans took their place as reluctant guardians of a galaxy that had underestimated them, their genetic heritage granting them control over technologies beyond our comprehension. Some species welcomed this new order. Others resisted, only to discover that human ingenuity was more terrifying than progenitor technology. As Captain Nakamura famously told the reformed Galactic Council, we never wanted to rule the stars, we just wanted to explore them. But if protecting them is our destiny, remember this: we're really, really good at protecting what's ours. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate the species that turned its own deadly radiation into medical treatment, its poisons into medicines, its wars into art. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same.